I actually have anxiety about making this video. I'm nervous about this. It's a big topic and it's beyond any of us. It's so huge. If you're not a gold investor already, you're definitely going to want to watch this video. And if you are a gold investor, you're going to have a lot of fun with this one. So stick with us. The potential that they may revalue gold, I'm going to show you exactly what's going to happen. And I want to talk to you specifically too about the two risks that everybody's missing about this. If you're a gold investor and you think this is going to be a good thing, it might not be, but it probably will be. And we're going to get into that, and I'm going to even give you some of the price predictions from a lot of the professionals in the industry where they think that the price of gold is going to go in an instant when they revalue gold. A lot of strange things have been happening worldwide with gold right now. A lot of moving parts, and they're all telling you one big story because they're all happening at once. You've got the Treasury Secretary talking about monetizing the American debt, and at least they're actually paying attention to the problem now, and they're going to maybe start fixing it. But part of that's obviously going to involve the gold that we have at Fort Knox and at the New York Federal Reserve Bank. And now American banks are buying gold themselves. Countries all over the world are repatriating gold. Nations, dozens and dozens of nations which have never bought gold are now buying gold. But the big story right now, and you guys have heard all the talk about a potential revaluation of the dollar in contrast to gold. Just like we did in 1933, gold went from $20. FDR confiscated all the gold, which, pay attention, stick with me because we're going to talk about a couple of the risks coming up. You're going to want to hear about that. But FDR confiscated the gold, revalued it to $37, $35 in an instant. So it kind of sucks if they took your gold. But is that going to happen again? And if it does, how high will gold go? And will you be warned first, or will you just wake up one day and there'll be a headline that they've revalued gold? You've heard all the talk. You guys are paying attention to this stuff. It's going to happen almost certainly. And we're going to talk about how likely it is and the downside and why it may not happen. But first, I'm going to also tell you in this video, a lot of the professionals in the industry, people who have been lifers in the mining industry or understanding gold. We're talking about Zhang. We're talking about Rick Rule, Andy Shackman, Peter Schiff, Jim Rickards, Mike Maloney, and they all have an opinion about how high gold prices will go with a reset or with a revaluation. And just before we get into all the comments about what they all are saying, I want to know what you think. How high do you think gold prices would go in the event of a modern revaluation? And from the pros, I'll give you a heads up that it's quite a range, but the highest price was a six-figure price that I saw somebody's opinion of potentially how high gold prices could go. And I'd like to ask you this really early on so that you please do it. Video's free. Please just give me a free like. If you like the video, it helps us help more people like you and like me. There's a lot of people getting blindsided. A lot of people are looking at the wrong stuff. And it was Frank Giustra, a mining phenom, godfather, humble guy, great guy. He understands what's really important in life, and it ain't money and it ain't gold. Frank Giustra said in an interview I watched a while ago that he's had his whole life in the mining industry and in this industry, and he has never seen the activity in gold like this. Something strange is happening. Something's going on. And he said that, I think it might have been a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago, I forget when. But since he said it, when I watched him say that, everything's gotten even more crazy. And I'm going to tell you in this video how crazy and this big rapid acceleration in terms of the absolutely gluttonous desire for gold, how it's not only a gluttonous desire, but it's accelerating right now. For 15 years straight now, central banks have been net buyers of gold. They are buying more gold than they're selling for 15 straight years, and now they've actually accelerated the rate of the buying. And I always tell you, it's not about the destination, it's about the speed of the journey. So if your house doubles in price over 30 years, that doesn't matter. You're not going to feel it. If your house doubles in price in 2 years, you'll feel that. It's about the speed of the slope, the speed of the incline, and the speed of gold accumulation in this gluttonous mass mania worldwide. Not just retail investors, but central banks. Countries are buying gold gluttonously. That is accelerating, and I'll show you exactly by how much. Not just that it's accelerating, but there's now dozens and dozens of more countries that are buying gold that were not buying gold 10 years ago. This is a speculative mania that's going beyond retail investors, and it's starting with central banks. In fact, central bank buying hit an all-time record high, a blowout number, in the second half of 2024. So all of this demand for gold is accelerating now, and that's what's the important point to notice. And it was in November, America finally went from being a net gold exporter to a net gold importer. In November, what happened in November? So now for the first time we're bringing in more gold than we're giving to other people. I always tell you that gold is all moving out to Asia. Everybody is sending gold to Asia, to Russia, to China. Hopefully that's going to start reversing, and you're seeing a lot of gold coming back to America, being mined more aggressively in America. And a lot of the strength in gold too. There's a lot of factors, okay? So it'll seem like I'm jumping around all over the place, but I need to tell you all of the different parts so you can see that the sum of them all together is the point. So you've got a lot of strength in gold prices because of nations trying to take the power back, so to speak, trying to avoid sanctions. The SWIFT system and the US dollar system. If you're a bad actor and you want to not be affected by sanctions put on you by America, it helps you to get out of the US dollar or sidestep it and go towards money, which is gold, because then you can trade gold to other countries for whatever you want. Gold can't be sanctioned. And you hear about all the tariffs right now, and yes, there's a lot of buying because they're trying to get ahead of the tariffs. And it's a good timing. You don't want to wait till the tariffs kick in and you're paying 25% more. So there's been a lot of artificial temporary buying demand, and that's also driven up gold prices and also brought a lot of gold back to America. Now, speaking of being tariffed and speaking of trying to avoid American sanctions, China is the #1 importer of gold, which is a big part of how I even developed this theory years ago that this was just going to be going on with this overwhelming imbalance of demand over supply. China's just buying up more gold than any country in the world, and they're mining more gold than any country in the world, producing it. So they find it, they dig it up, they melt it down, they form it in bars, and they keep it. And they've always been dishonest. They've always been hiding how much gold they're buying. And you can get an idea of how much gold they have because you knew what they claimed to have had before, and then you can watch it go in there from other countries. If somebody buys that much gold, you can watch it go out of Switzerland and go to China, and then you can say, well, then therefore they own that gold. But you don't know how much they're producing, and they're not telling anybody. So who knows how much gold China has? And he who owns the gold makes the rules, and China is setting up for what's coming up as the BRICS currency, which will be partially gold-backed. But I just want to say something. There's already a gold-backed currency, they call it the unit, that a lot of these BRICS nations are using to trade commodities with each other. So they're already using gold-backed currency to trade oil, to trade anything. And you don't have to have any reliance on the American dollar. But you know the BRICS countries, now there's 10 of them. So the ones you know, plus they added Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia. And think of like the population of some of these countries. Iran and United Arab Emirates. Now if you have China and India, right there, you've got a third of the world's total population. Add all these other countries, you're looking at over half of the world is a BRICS nation. And when they do start using their currency, people say, oh, they've been talking about it for years, or they'll never be able to supplant the US dollar. If half the world is suddenly using a different currency, even if they're trading tree bark, then that easily could be a reserve currency. It could supplant the US dollar. They get to choose. If you're from Indonesia, you say, I'm going to buy something from China. You know what? Let's all use this. It's basically their version of the euro, a common currency. And when countries are connected on an economic level, the same reason we never go to war with a country with a McDonald's, it's not because we like McDonald's. You're just usually interconnected then, and it makes it less beneficial to go to war with a country you're economically connected with. Which is why I always say in the BRICS nations, it's interesting and very notable that Iran is in there now too. And even more notable, everything I just said, consider that plus, the likelihood of Israel now doing the strikes against the Iranian nuclear facilities has actually accelerated a lot lately. And I do not want to talk about this in the video, but in a couple of months, it's very likely that Israel will take action against Iran, which is one of the countries that is in the BRICS nations, with a common economic tie to all the other countries that I mentioned. This is a chart from the World Gold Council of all the gold reserves by country. And understand this is from 2023, a year and a half ago. And since then, we've had the biggest ramp up in gold purchases that we've ever seen by far. And now when you see this same chart in a couple of years, the numbers will be so much different. All these countries, look at all these countries, they're all buying gold more than they ever have. Why banks are flying gold worth billions from London to New York is because of the tariffs, but just listen to these headlines. Why are banks flying gold from London to New York? Gold bars worth billions are being stashed on commercial flights and rushed to get bullion to America. But it's always beneficial to look at what is the smart money doing? What is the, I'll call it the deep money. I'm talking about the nation states, the central banks of all these countries. They're buying up gold like crazy. They own 17% of the world's gold that's ever been mined, but this is a year and a half ago. So the newest data hasn't come out yet, and since then, all the gold buying has really accelerated. So the total reserves of all the central banks in the world is 36,699 tons of gold. And that was before all of this acceleration, where just keep in mind the numbers when we talk about how much gold the central banks have bought last year. And apparently the 1/5 of all the world's gold is not enough for them. They're trying to buy even more. But could gold be revalued? Absolutely yes. Jerome Powell could, on orders from the president, revalue gold today. And you won't be warned about it, it'll just happen. But what is a revaluation of gold? What is it really? People always talk about it like, wow, gold prices are going up. But really what's happening is there's a massive, horrendous devaluation of the US dollar. It's an admission that we've got debts that we can't pay. It's an admission that everything I've been telling you for over a decade now, a couple of decades, is coming to a conclusion or a culmination. We're at the end of the road. We're at the cliff. We've kicked the can down the road. The can keeps getting bigger. We can't kick it anymore. And I always talk about, yeah, don't worry, our grandkids will have to deal with this. And I'm telling you that we are the grandkids. We're the ones who are going to have to deal with it. This debt bomb is going to explode. This is all part of it. It's all one thing. You see how like all of these different metrics are coming together to make a situation where it would be really logical and really beneficial for the government to revalue gold against the US dollar. It would be very bad for the dollar, very good for anyone who owns any gold. Because as I always tell you, gold is gold is gold. What is the price of gold? It's never changed, and it doesn't change. You could have bought an ounce of gold for $30 100 years ago and just kept it in the package, didn't touch it, didn't let light spoil it, don't let the kids play with it, just left it in the package for 100 years. And now it has never changed value. You just need to have 3,000 US dollars to buy it now instead of 30. And that's true of every fiat currency in the entire world. Fiat means by decree. They just say this $20,000 platinum coin is worth $1 trillion on our balance sheet. And just so you know, like Janet Yellen, I think is, okay, I'm not saying anything. It's just crazy, man. If you want to believe in this kind of stuff, this piece of tree bark is worth $1 billion and we'll put it on the balance sheet. Like, it's just crazy. Everyone's lost their mind. That's why it's so important that you're involved with real money, actual money. Gold's never changed value in thousands and thousands of years. And one thing I got to make sure to say that I don't forget to put in this video, they may not revalue gold. Maybe this is all just a bunch of excitement and I'm overreacting, and so is every other analyst in the entire industry overreacting to it, and people who are retail investors are overreacting, and maybe they don't ever revalue gold. That's a possibility. Keep it in mind. But if they don't, just ignore that it was even a topic. No one ever talked about it. The price of gold is still going to be driving up to where I told you it's going to go for years now. It's going to $10,000 an ounce. It's going to go through $5,000 first, of course. And then we get there, we'll talk about $10,000. It's all a reflection of the purchasing power of the American dollar. But if they don't revalue gold, or until they revalue gold, the very idea that it's a possibility that people are excited about, like me, then that's actually going to drive a lot of attention into the space that's been overlooked for so long. I've told you a great investment approach is to invest in whatever is most unloved at the time. The only thing more unloved than gold is probably silver. And I mean that even now, when it's at $3,000 an ounce, it's still completely unloved. The number of people who actually own gold or understand gold or invest in gold mining stocks is anemic. and ridiculous. Everyone's distracted. They're not paying attention. And eventually there'll be enough political pressure to sort of fight for or push for a revaluation, because there's a lot of big American banks, friends to the administration. There's a lot of big nation states that have a lot of gold, and they will all benefit if gold prices get revalued in the American dollar. And so maybe there will be pressures coming from them that if president's on the fence about doing it, maybe it pushes him over the edge. And he does do what would be logical for the American economy that I've been complaining about for such a long time because of the mismanagement and the unbridled, unpayable debts. Any nation or individual who owns gold, if there's a revaluation, they're going to make bank. Anyone who doesn't own gold will drop in terms of comparative wealth instantly. But if you believe in keeping up with the Joneses, if they own gold and you don't, they're going to be way ahead of you, and vice versa. If you own gold and they don't, they're not keeping up with you. I actually talk in Upthinking, my book, about comparative value, comparative wealth. If you're only living on 55 cents a day, but everybody you know is living on 10 cents a day, you're going to feel like you're doing pretty well. For some people, a lot of people, most people, it's more important to do better than those around you than to actually look at the number of how well you're doing. You can make $500,000 a year, everybody you know makes $1 million a year, and you feel like you're being left behind. You feel like you're doing something wrong, you're not doing the right things. It's ridiculous, but it's a real thing that happens. But listen to this. For every $100 that gold prices increase, that's an extra $25 billion on the U.S. Treasury balance sheet that they can use to spend on things such as all of our debts, all of our expenses. For every $100, we're talking about $25 billion more in spending space on the American credit card. And to offset the $36 trillion of American debt, Andy Schectman, who knows his stuff, he floated a number, and he didn't say that the gold would go to this price. He said if gold was at this price, revalued to this level, it would take care of all of the debt on the balance sheet. And that number is a six-figure number, and I'm going to get to that in a second when we talk about Rick Rule and Lynette Zhang and Jim Rickards' predictions for what could happen in a gold reset. But the most important part for a lot of you, I know, in this video is the two risks I'm going to talk about, because this could go the wrong way. It could go the exact opposite way that I'm probably making you feel like it's going to go in this video. So bear with me till we get to the two risks. I'll tell you how likely they are to happen and how they might affect you. But how much gold do we have in America? At Fort Knox and at the New York Federal Reserve Bank, the American government has 261 million ounces of gold, which works out to 8,133 tons of gold. And a lot of American banks are buying gold now, and they're keeping it underneath the sidewalks in New York. And there's homeless people walking around asking for spare change, sleeping on cold pavement that are a matter of feet above some of these gold reserves. It's the biggest detachment between wealth and lack of wealth that exists in the world. But for about 3 or 4 years now, central banks have bought over 1,000 tons of gold per year. Now keep that number in mind when we get up to how much gold they bought in 2024. Okay, 1,000 ounces a year became a big thing, just like when gold broke 2,000. People didn't think it could do it, and then finally did. No, it's never looked back. The same thing, that central banks bought over 1,000 tons of gold, and that was notable because it broke the 1,000-ton barrier. And that was a few years ago, and since then things have only accelerated, as you're about to see. As I said, there's 15 years of net buying by central banks, and that buying is accelerating. That's the point. It doesn't matter that they're buying more. It matters that they're speeding up how quickly they're buying more. In the second half of 2024, they blew out all the numbers by how much gold they bought over that time. It was a record number, and it's just another display of the acceleration of the gluttony right now. And so, you know, I'm not saying gluttony as a disparaging word. I'm just saying that's what it reminds me of. India purchased 73 tons of gold. Poland bought 90 tons. China bought 44 tons. Turkey, there's so many countries that are just buying gold by the ton. Do you know how much gold is in a ton? Well, yeah, you do. It's a ton, but that's a lot of gold. So in 2024, central banks bought a record. Remember I told you to keep track of the 1,000 tons number. In 2024, central banks bought 4,974 tons. 5 times more than they did 3 years ago. There's also been, at the same time, record repatriations of gold. Bank of England keeps a lot of gold for a lot of nations. India just brought back 100 tons of gold, and they also bought gold and repatriated it. And a lot of countries, dozens of countries, are now suddenly repatriating gold from England, which is why the Bank of England used to be able to give you your gold if you wanted it within a few settlement days, and it became weeks, and now I think it's months. I haven't checked where it's at right now, but it became a lot longer. That is the story. The point isn't about more repatriations. The point is that they can't fulfill the repatriations. There's too many people asking for gold. It's basically a central bank run. Just like a bank run here, it was a bank run by central banks. The point is that there's dramatically more demand than supply worldwide from every single metric that you look at. And I put out the big precious metals mining report for gold and silver miners the other day. And one of the charts that I put in there I want to show you. This is when I start talking about gold and explaining it all to all of you. So you can see when I started buying it. And my dad reminded me the other day, I always tell you $1,600 is when I started buying gold. But that's just a convenient round number. My dad reminded me the other day, we actually started before that at lower prices. But you know what? This is what I'm trying to show you guys. It doesn't matter. All you need to understand is that there is this period where gold was just plodding around. And what was it like to be someone who believed in gold at that time? And then cryptocurrencies are going crazy, real estate, stocks, and then all of a sudden everyone starts thinking that you don't know what you're talking about. You take a lot of flack. But one of the best testimonials I ever got was someone said that they've been following me for ages, years and years, and I've never once changed my outlook. And I love that because it was tough, especially with all the times that we've gone through lately, to stick to my guns. And it sucks when you know you're right and you know that you're going to take pain by being right and waiting for it to happen, but this is what happened. And right there is where I put the majority of my investments into physical silver and gold mining and silver mining companies. And if you're a subscriber to my newsletter, you knew that as I did it. And if you watch my YouTube videos, that was back when I was doing this stupid thing on the cruise ship because I just had to get out of town for a while. So I was by myself on a cruise ship for a couple of weeks. And I filmed a few videos there. And I remember telling you guys, sitting there, I'm all in on gold. I'm all in on gold. And it wasn't a hope or speculation. It was a logical understanding of the purchasing trends, mainly coming out of China, that everyone's not seeing because they didn't know how to look at it properly. China has gone crazy for gold. They alone will drive up the price. Long story short, every single sign that I'm looking at is pointing to an upcoming modern revaluation. Gold against the US dollar. It happened in 1933 with Franklin Delano Roosevelt when he went from $20 to $37. That was the revaluation right then. And that also is part of what we need to talk about with the risks coming up in just a second. That all happened at a time of risk. They confiscated gold. They might do it again. We'll talk about that. But my understanding is that on the books right now, all the gold that the American government owns in their reserves is on the books valued at about $42 an ounce. Even though it's trading on the organic open market at closer to $3,000 on the books. It's an accounting thing. They valued it at that point and they kept it there this whole time. And now they might revalue it. And I told you that to get out from this great American debt bomb, you could default any number of different types of default to not pay everything you owe or in a timely manner. Or they could print more money and pay with all this new watered down currency, which is also a default through inflation. But now the third option, the good one, is a revaluation of gold compared to the US dollar, which I believe could be done without congressional approval. It could just be a decree that one day you wake up and Trump decides to tell Powell to do it and it's done. But here's some of the numbers, okay? And I told you about Andy Schectman, his number, and he didn't say it's going to go to this price, but he says if it went to this price, 6 figures, hang on, if it went to this price, it would be the amount we need to be revalued to sort of override all these American debt bomb problems. I'll say it that way. His number, and we're going to do everybody's number here, but his number, I'll start with the big one, $142,000 an ounce, which theoretically could happen in an instant on a decision by a few people that it would benefit them, and so they do it, and it would totally benefit the American economy. It would destroy the American dollar. It would drive gold prices up to that in an instant. You've got Lynette Zhang. Her number came in at 40,000 that I heard. And a lot of these numbers too, when I saw the video and they said it, I don't know if their numbers have changed or not, or what their numbers are right now. But I saw a video. Zhang's talking 40. Jim Rickards talking 27,000. Rick Rule, Mike Maloney, both 20,000. I know Peter Schiff's number is a lot higher than current gold prices for sure. I'm not sure. I don't have the actual number here. But I want to stop right here though, okay? It's exciting, especially if you're a gold investor. All these numbers though, they're opinions, they're educated opinions, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is what I'm trying to express to you about the way that I invest in things. It's like, you know that all the greatest minds in the industry that know this stuff are all expecting gold prices to go up. The lowest estimate is 6 times higher than the current price. What do you think happens to gold mining stocks when the metal that they're mining is suddenly 6 times more valuable? It'll explode the profit margins. The share prices will follow suit. Anybody that owns gold mining stocks will be absolutely enriched. And that's the lower estimates. What if we hit something that, say for example, 40,000, like Lynette Zhang's mentioning? Even if you just owned 1 ounce of gold, you just made a whole ton of money. Unless they confiscate it. So don't go anywhere. I got to talk to you about that. And you're hearing a lot of talk about Ron Paul auditing the Fed, finding out if the gold that they're saying that is there is actually there, because you don't know if it is. I don't know if it is. He doesn't know if it is. There's been no proof provided. So an audit of the Fed would be wonderful. It's weird that we don't easily be able to do that, but okay, here's the 2 big risks that you've been waiting for, and I got to tell you this is so important. You got to keep your eyes open and look at the downside. The 2 big risks are exactly this. If they're going to use the gold, they're going to monetize the debt, they're going to monetize things and start paying more attention to the absolutely fiscal train wreck that we've built for all of us. One of the things they might do is sell gold that they have. They have the largest gold holdings, 8,133 tons, and they start selling that. That puts pressure on gold prices. So number one, not only does that lower the prices of gold and the effects that follow on from that, but also it's an admission that the gold revaluation is not going to happen. And if everybody's acting like and positioning that they expect it to happen, and then they find out it's not going to, that's a blowback, and all of that speculation comes out of it, and that's going to really hurt mining stocks and the prices of the metals themselves. Are they going to sell their gold reserves to pay for debts and expenses? I think that'd be weird, but you and I both know that politicians of all types, all stripes, often have done things that are absolutely clearly foolish and incorrect, and they backfire. This happens all the time. So are they going to sell the gold that they have to pay down debts that we've overspent on things? They could. I doubt it. It wouldn't make any sense, but that doesn't stop them in the past. But here's the big one. The confiscation of gold, which happened in 1933. Franklin Delano Roosevelt confiscated gold. You couldn't own it. Just if you think though about the prohibition, that just made people drink more. And if you think about confiscation of gold, that just demonstrates the value of gold. And what happened? It was in 1933. What else happened in 1933? The world was in the middle of the Great Depression. People are starving the world over. That's why the Nazi Party came to power. One of the reasons. It was the Great Depression. We're going from the Great War, the war to end all wars, to a horrible time for the economy. And a lot of evil people come to power at times like that. And it was a different world. And FDR's saying, I'm taking the gold. We were on the gold standard at the time. It's different now. And the thing is, people say, well, could they steal or confiscate our gold? They could confiscate gold of American citizens. They could. Just like they could say, we're going to take all your artwork. We're going to go to your house. You're not allowed to legally own artwork, and it now all belongs to the government. Yeah, they can do that. And they can't impose the confiscations on someone in Denmark or Siberia or Peru. But if you're an American citizen, they can do whatever they want. It's not logically beneficial in any way. There's no value in confiscating gold, which is why I assume that they are almost certainly not going to. And if they do even, you get paid for it and the price is going up so much that you're going to be made well. But if they do confiscate gold, it's because they're about to revalue it. So basically screw over everyone that owns gold. But it doesn't make any logical sense. I honestly believe they will never even come close to confiscating gold. It was a different world back then. I understand that any government can do whatever they want to their own people, even if it's bad and illogical. So you always have to consider that. But here's what you do if you're an American, and I'm not giving you personalized trading advice, believe me. Get somebody you know in Spain or Australia. Get them to buy an ounce of gold and hold it for you. You send them the money, they hold it there. You can't confiscate that. But I'm not telling you to do that. I don't know. It's got to be you decide what you think is best for you. And I really doubt that the confiscation is a valid concern at all. And it is actually one of the things that might have held gold prices back a bit, that you can even get it at these really low prices. And I say really low prices, I'm talking $3,000 an ounce for gold. It's an incredibly low price. That's a steal. How do you think I knew that gold was going to be going through 3,000, going through 5,000? How did I know this? It's all based on stuff that has nothing to do with America. You could be living on an island in Fiji. Gold prices are going to the moon. It's got nothing to do with America. There's just so much demand for this one commodity, and it could be coffee beans. There could be the same thing happening with coffee beans or sweaters in a heat wave. If everybody's buying sweaters and all of a sudden there's not enough sweaters, the prices go up. The one thing I've said to you over the years, I've done a lot of videos, I've been around for a while, and a lot of you are newer here now, but a lot of you have been around for a long time. What's the thing I always tell you, besides don't worry about gold when it goes down in price? I always go, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It could drop to $10 an ounce. It's not going anywhere. It'll bounce back. But the one thing I always tell you, and you guys will remember this if you've been around, I always say to you, you're going to want to own some gold. You're going to want to own silver too, because it's such an undervalued, ridiculously imbalanced investment right now with a big silver squeeze coming up. But a gold revaluation against the dollar will affect mainly gold. It's not going to affect all precious metals. It'll affect gold dramatically and specifically. There's a massive silver squeeze coming up. I believe it's going to happen soon, and I believe it's going to really drive up silver prices significantly and more than we've ever seen. But that's the better investment if there isn't a revaluation in gold. If there is a revaluation, the better investment is gold. But what I'll say to you, and this is not personalized trading advice, what I'll say to you is that don't worry about it. Do not try and time this stuff. Don't try and buy gold to then say I'll sell it for more money later. Just position yourself. Buy some gold, physical. Buy physical silver. It's a gift at the price it's at right now. Not hard to buy it either. And if you care enough, you'll figure out how to do it. Buy gold mining and silver mining stocks that they're Peter Leeds approved, the good ones that are going to be in business. Most mining stocks go out of business. That's why people benefit from the stuff I'm telling you. I'm good at this stuff. I'm finding it easy. I like it. Why not benefit from it? You don't have to buy my book. You don't have to buy my newsletter. Just benefit. Watch this video. I'm not lying to you. Position yourself better, because we are at the cusp of this big economic pivot that's going to be so ugly. If I save you or help you and you never give me a penny, that's a win for me. And you're going to want to keep in touch with me, and you can do that by becoming a Peter Leeds Insider. Details below, because then you can email me anytime, and I'm going to help you through not only the big economic transition that we are actually in right now, but the approaching silver squeeze, the approaching gold revaluation, and all sorts of other things, avoiding manias, avoiding the risks. This is all the benefits that you're going to get by being in touch with me. And so here's my big summary, my big final comment, where I'm saying that I don't know if gold's going to get revalued. I believe it is. I believe it's logically the absolutely right thing to do. I believe a lot of people will get hurt by it because if you don't own gold, then you're going to get hurt by it. But allow me to say goodbye and part ways with you by telling you my last sentence. I really want to end with this because I don't ever want to say this again. If you're not listening now, I'm not going to feel bad if you miss out or get burned by what is about to happen. You are going to want to own some gold.